Here we can see the famous first edition stamp, and all of these little dots you're seeing are called the dot matrix. Small cyan, yellow, and black dots are arranged in various densities to create color and depth. These are applied through a process called offset printing. In other words, Pokemon cards are made of little dots. Now, the stamp itself isn't made of little dots though, and it's applied using a dye. A dye is the industry word for the part that gets wet and stamps the ink, and in fact, the stamp is applied further down the production line, after the cards have already been printed. What you're looking at right now is a black first edition stamp. Now, let's switch it out for a gray one. See the difference? A gray stamp is an error, truth be told, and interestingly, it's an error that spans the entirety of the WotC era of Pokemon cards. Gray stamps exist more on some sets and less on others, but as long as the card has a first edition stamp, we can reasonably deduce that a gray variation exists. The first theory I want to visit is low ink. I'll start by saying that this is a very reasonable deduction and is debated today because it can't really be disproven. Let's go back to that microscope shot. Here we can see the black ink missing. We can actually see the dot matrix through the black, and that's why it appears gray to the naked eye. It's clear from these images that not enough ink is on the card. But there are a lot of factors that need to be considered. The first is cardstock thickness. We don't know this for sure, but it's reasonable to speculate that the thickness of the sheet could result in a bad stamp. For example, if the sheet is too thick, the dye might apply too much pressure, resulting in a blurry stamp. The problem with this theory, though, is that not a lot of blurry stamps have been found. They're basically non-existent. But maybe thin cardstock could be an issue. I tested the thickness of my black stamps compared to my gray stamps with a micrometer, but I found no meaningful difference. Theory 3 is the wet ink theory. The main idea here is that the ink from the stamp die is transferred just fine, perfectly even, but the cards are cut and stacked on top of one another before the ink was fully dry. This would result in the ink then partially drying on the card, but also on the card stacked above it. There was a lot of demand for Pokemon cards in 1999, like a crazy amount of demand. So it's very likely that they were running this production way too fast, just not giving the ink enough time to dry. The evidence? This.